Hey, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're burning down the house so we can rebuild it. Every day, we're talking to construction champions all over the United States about how we can be better in the industry. I'm super excited to have Amy here with us today. Amy, how's it going?
Great. How are you, Ron?
I am doing fantastic. I'm super excited about our conversation today. So for all the construction champions out there, Amy is a 19-year veteran of the construction industry, from project management to running companies. And now she runs her own company, WellWorks, where she helps people be the champions they're meant to be in the construction industry. I'm super excited, like I said, for our conversation today. Amy, why don't you tell me what you're most excited about with what you're working on today?
What I'm most excited about, I think, is making an impact on people who have wanted and needed this information for so dang long. In all reality, I got to a point where I was sick of waiting and looking for this or trying to explain it, what we needed and why we needed it. So I just dug in and built it. What we do best in construction, right? Do it. So I'm just excited to finally get these tools and give our field the confidence and the support that they have needed for a very long time.
That is awesome. So we're going to get right into it. I'm going to ask the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
Yeah, no, I would say appreciation, recognition, and respect for the most critical component of the construction industry, which are the people who work in the field, the boots on the ground team members, right? Appreciation and recognition of their time, their energy, their sweat, their grit, their pride, loyalty, knowledge, and that know-how, right? That keeps everything else going in our nation. I've heard before, it was a fantastic quote that construction's the heartbeat of America, right? Nobody else can do what they do without us doing what we do first. But think about it. If construction's the heartbeat of America, our field workers are the lifeblood in the veins. So no one else can do what they do without them doing what they do first. So whether you're championing or are a champion of, I think if you're not speaking highly of those in the field or don't think highly of those in the field, then you're not a construction champion.
I love it, being somebody that has spent a lot of time in the field and, I'd worked my way through the field from digging the hose and running the crews. I understand exactly where you're coming from. And it's definitely something that we can overlook a lot of times. We can not feel the needs for that. And that's what you do. You help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is, right, I don't have that field experience. My background was more college. I actually got a degree in construction management. I actually wouldn't be here today if it weren't for that. Not because I was good at school, I will tell you that. It was because I thought I had to go to college and I've heard about construction, right? But working alongside the field, getting out to the field as often as possible. Of course, I thought I was very important coming out of college as a project manager, right? But I realized I was important, but I wasn't critical. And the realization throughout my career is that the field is who's critical to a project's success, a company's success, the industry's success. Yeah.
I love that. I want to dive into that a little bit when you talk about being critical and what does that look like, and unpack that realization that you had from a project management perspective of not being critical and what really does matter on these job sites.
Yeah. So I think it was, there's the technical skills of construction, but then there's the essential skills, right? The communication, the leadership, it's a people business, right? It was that realization that you manage things. And so as a project manager, I'm managing things. I'm managing RFIs, contracts, processes, the schedule, but you lead people. And that is what was out in the field, is their ability to communicate with so many different people. And I would say use so many different languages, but not just it's just think outside of just foreign languages, Spanish, English, they have to talk to somebody an engineer, an architect, somebody who may have not graduated high school, right? Somebody who's having really life struggles right now, the public, an inspector, all these different people, and having to speak that language to create action or motivation or explain yourself or your team. And so while I'm sitting there as a project manager, I can write an email and sit on it for 2 hours and think about, is this going to come over the right way? Right? They don't have that opportunity. It's quick and it's immediate. And how far that resonates and creates an impact on a site, it's fantastic. It's amazing. And it's also intimidating, but just how they behave can create and set the tone for a project and either create its success or not on a project. So that was that realization over years. I will tell you, I did, again, it took a couple years, maybe a little more than a couple years to realize I wasn't the most critical component, but and recognizing that shift of like, I'm not here to direct the field. I'm here to support the field because they're critical. They're the most important thing in what we do.
That's 100% true, because without guys out in the field, women out in the field doing the work, finishing the projects, none of this happens.
No.
That heartbeat never takes shape. So how do you help with that? How do you assist with getting everybody on the same page?
Yeah, it's more directed towards, it's leadership development, right? Is what I created a leadership development program directed for our field. And it's really geared towards the leaders of the field, but not leader's not just a title, right? It's the inherent leader, the servant leader. And so anybody who leads 2 or more people is considered a leader. It's trying to change some of the misconceptions about what that is, give them the confidence that, yeah, you know what you're doing, right? And just giving them some of those tools so they can select which tool to use in which environment, situation, or with which people for the success of the team, because they know that best. And so honestly, I kind of dig down to, well, what's happening in our brain? Why are we acting like this? And how behaviors are legitimate. They are contagious. There's science behind that now. All of us had that gut instinct, right? Just, yeah, behaviors are contagious. Bad moods are contagious, right? And there's like, well, yeah, I've seen it before, but I kind of give some backup and some research behind it of explaining why, and then how to be more intentional about that so that whatever you're trying to communicate, your nonverbal communication, inherent, unintentional, nonverbal communications consistent with that, so that you could be a lot more effective, intentional, and successful in those conversations and motivating others to get something done, right? That's all we're trying to do, is motivate others to do something.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I used to find like the guys in the field, they want that. Like they're hungry for some kind of development, some kind of like, I think there can be a feeling like those guys just want to do that. Like that's just what they want to do. It's all good. That's what they want to do. We'll let them out there doing it. But I found like that's not really the case. And a lot of future leaders can come from that if you invest in it. Is that what you're finding out there? And what's that look like?
Massively. And honestly, more than I thought. When I started the company, I was like, they're not going to want training, or they may not want this information, but they're so dang smart. Of course they want to improve, or they want to be more effective or efficient, or just well-being, right? Better well-being of themselves and for their teams. They want what's best for their teams. And so they absolutely are hungry for that. And that's exactly some of the conversations I had with my superintendents back in project management when we talk about communication or leadership. Some of the guys would say, Amy, I don't have a college degree. I never got that. I'm sitting here like, I didn't get that either from my college degree. I don't know any of this either. And I hated that they stated that, because they're so incredibly smart and intelligent. And just because it's not school that you can show that, or like, I still suck at taking tests, right? But yes, I went through it, but that doesn't mean you're not smart and you're not able to use that, or you're not wanting to grow or just get better as a human being. Of course they want that information. So that's really what I've done, is try to make it as effective as possible to get out to them instead of having them come to it. The way that it's structured, the way that the program's structured, it just increases that learning transfer, which is learning transfers how much information you take in and utilize, right? So if you're going someplace and you're like, wow, that I was there for like 3 hours and I probably got like 10% of the information and I probably won't use this 6 months later, right? That's that really low learning transfer. And so it's really built to get out to them where they're at, to be used immediately, to try it with their teams, to get on the job site, right? It's built so that it's finally built for them instead of built for something else and expecting them to come to it. Yeah.
I like that. So most of our champions out there that listen to the podcast are owners, are contractors, are builders. They have teams. They're building their businesses. They're working on getting to that end goal of why they started the company. How do they start to get stuff out to their field guys? How do you recommend going about that? What are the steps for them to start getting their guys the training and leadership that they need?
Yeah, absolutely. And the traditional learning setting, right, where with the PowerPoint, the classroom and everything else, there's definitely a spot for that. It's when you're going to get to the information. But what can you do to provide just a resource? I mean, heck, you can get a Wix website for very cheap, right? Of just providing some type of cheap, not cheap, I shouldn't say that. Don't give them cheap shit, okay? I'm sorry. Don't know if I'm allowed to say that. But find a resource, allow them, get it out to them, right? What did you teach, or what was the information you were trying to transmit? And can you put it into a sheet or a quick video or a quick audio as a refresher when they're out there and that's when they need the information? We learn best when we're hungry for it, when we need it most, not 3 years down the road, right? I'm not going to remember something that apparently I'm going to be in 3 years, I'm going to need this. You've got challenges, you've got situations, you've got different tasks that you do every day. And that's what you need most. That's what your brain's going to retain most. So can you just give them a piece of paper? What can you provide them and get out to them as just refreshers, reminders, tools, so that they have access to that when they need it. If it's a QR code on how to maintain or use a tool, right? On the tool, right? It's just, it's thinking of those things, of just legitimately put yourself in their shoes and truly listen to them of why they can't get something or what they need. And it starts to become apparent. It doesn't have to be a massive training program, right? It doesn't have to be all encompassing. Just bit by bit, like how to write this or how to maybe do this little small task. Otherwise, they're going to look it up on YouTube and Google and get information that way anyway. So, if you can be more, if you're the expert in that, then provide that information in just little snippets, micro learning chunks.
I love that, because I think back on writing operations and systems manuals and how we're going to do this and how we do this. And you take all this knowledge and you start putting it in somewhere, and it becomes way overwhelming for anybody. And all you're trying to do, all I was trying to do, is take what's in my head, what's in my field supervisors' heads, and get it all in one place. So we have, this is how we do it. And what you're talking about doing is not just doing that, but then saying, here's this section, and making it easily accessible. Like on those sheets, like on job closeout sheets, as easy as having a QR code on there that takes you to a video or an easy checklist for just that. So like, this is how we do it. And you don't have to go through a 100-page book on how we run this company from start to finish, how we do a job. And I think all too often we get really we think about it at such a grand scale. And I wish I would have had, like, this. To me, that's amazing, because we got guys out there building companies that are putting the systems in place and they're trying to get them implemented. And a lot of stuff can get lost because it's so much.
Yes. Yeah. We had an 800-page project manager manual. I wound up, when I switched to the director of training and outreach in that company, I wound up whittling it down to about 108 pages with a lot of external links, but still, like, when you need to look up something, are you going to read a 108-page manual to find it? No, you're going to go directly to the section that you need. Right? So whatever you can, again, whatever you can provide, if it's, gosh, explanation of one of your top employees who knows how to do that really well, right? If it's even just an audio clip, or if it's a quick video of a how-to for 3 minutes, a 3-minute or a 30-second video, right? That's going to go over a lot better than just, well, I don't even know where my manual is. I think it's back in the trailer, but I'm out here, right? And so it's making it, we've got our phones, like use it for that. Use it as a tool that it's intended to be, not a crutch or a weapon, but a tool, right?
Yeah, I think we put all this time into creating these operations manuals and all of this stuff with the best interest of everybody. This is going to simplify everything. It's going to make everything so much easier, but that all ends up getting lost because the impractical, that's not a word I can't even pronounce, but it's just not practical to implement. Like when you're like, oh, here we go, boom, you're the foreman out here. Here's your foreman manual. This is how you're going to do everything. And not only are they already overwhelmed because it's probably day one or week one of being a foreman on the job site, or even a crew guy. We have all these trainings and how we onboard new hires. And it's going to be, like you said, about what do you retain and what do you don't, but setting them up in a position where I love the QR codes. I hate to just keep going back to that, but I can just see it where you just have QR codes pop like on just stuff like here or here, even on some of these forms, like job starting form, mid-job form, closeout forms, or even with your materials or safety knowledge or how to operate stuff and maintain stuff. And it just becomes this easy thing that everybody know. Let me just scan this real quick. And I love getting other employees involved in doing some of these videos because, I used to always say, especially to my field supervisors and managers and stuff, is like the last thing anybody wants to hear is Ron Nussbaum talk anymore. Like, so getting away to where you don't have to do that is amazing. I think you're really on to something that's magical here.
Yeah, it's on the job. There is on the job training, but it's also like just in time training. There's it's rethinking what training is, right? Because most of it's like training, right? Like I have to go do this, right? But what if we did like training as a reward of just like, I get to learn this now because I've gotten to that level, right? Or again, it's just providing those resources. Just we think about ourselves in that space when we're writing out this thing, but most of us are non-traditional learners, right? We were the ones who were jumping up and down because we had too much energy in the classroom. The class, the teacher sitting there yelling at us, sit down, like slow down, all this, like, no, this is how I learn. This is my strength. This is what I do, right? And so it's trying to, how can you just morph it just a little bit, training reimagined, right, into something that you would want, right? If whether you were great in school, I would say that's probably the instruction manuals are more for like our engineers than they are for our construction. Who reads the instruction manual on a piece of equipment before they hop? They're like, well, I'm just going to learn and write, and it's failure and trial and error and everything else. So why don't we build training like that so that it just accommodates, like when you're like, well, crap, now I'm in this position. Thanks, QR code. How do I get out of this position, right? What just happened? Why is this thing still beeping at me, right? It's just providing resources. Provide resources instead of the traditional long trainings that we typically have. Yeah.
I think that's an amazing way to sum that up, is to provide resources, not just provide training to provide training, because that's what happens is we feel like we need to do these trainings. We need to do this stuff. I think high level overviews and having some kind of follow-up way for people to be able to continue to understand, because that's really what people want. You want to know, here's the 1, 2s, and 3s. Now go be great at what you do.
Yeah. There was somebody, it was fantastic. He got it from his superintendent and shared it with me. And I'm sure everybody's heard of it, right? But 2 + 2 is 4, but so is 3 + 1. As long as they're getting to 4, right? Does it matter how they get there? we've got to let go of some of that sometimes, of just, it's not exactly how we would have done it. And yes, they may have failed. Well, fantastic. They just learned something. But did they get to the end goal? Do we know what the end goal is? And have we communicated that, right? Be more focused on that, because that's what our energy needs to be focused on, more so than making sure that they're stepping in every one of our footsteps along the way.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Amy, it has been fantastic having you on the episode here today. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you if they wanted to reach out or wanted to follow you and connect with you? Where's the best places to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website, it's actually livingwellworks.org, but my company's name is Wellworks, not Living Well Works. That and LinkedIn. I don't really have much social media elsewhere, but the LinkedIn is where I'm very active, and I love hearing and seeing all the different posts from different construction sites and the topping out and all of those things. So LinkedIn for sure, Amy Powell, or the Wellworks, and then livingwellworks.org.
Awesome. I will make sure to have those links in our show notes. And thank you for taking the time to be on Construction Champions.
Thanks for what you do. Appreciate it. And I love it.
Awesome. All right, Construction Champions. That's the end of another fantastic episode where we really touched on Training 101 and implementation of that training. And what does that look like? All too often we can become so overwhelmed with what does the systems and processes look like? Because that's what we're told. As you build a business, you have to put the systems and processes in place for it to be great. But we lose track of how does that information actually make it to the field? A golden nugget in this episode for me is the QR codes. I can start to actually see QR codes popping up around my house. So when people go to do things, here you go. This is exactly how you do it. A real quick little introduction, a high-level overview, a checklist. I think something like that completely starts to change the game, not just for you and your company, but for the guys out in the field that know, hey, you gave them a high-level overview. You trust them to go do the job. They know exactly what they're supposed to do, but you're also giving them that little cheat code. If something does happen or they forget, something that they can quickly go to make them the champion for your customers at the end of the day. And that's what we want. So Construction Champions, make sure you go to constructionchampionspodcast.com. Check out our partners and our sponsors. Go over to Facebook and get involved with the Construction Champions Mastermind Group, where we're bringing together listeners and guests in one place where we can be champions together. So until next time, go be the champion you were meant to be.